Have you ever felt like you're carrying a storm inside while the world expects you to smile and stay strong? What if I told you there's a version of you, calm, powerful, untouchable, already within, just waiting to be awakened? Stay with me, because once this mental shift clicks, you'll never be the same, and nothing will ever control you again. Toxic people will affect you. Again, unless you do this. ElevateWise channel. Have you ever felt like everything around you was pulling you down? Like the world just kept pressing in? And no matter how hard you tried to stay centered, something always knocked you off balance? Maybe it was someone's words. Sharp, careless, unexpected, that left a deeper mark than you realized. Maybe it was a situation that spiraled out of your hands, dragging your peace, your focus, your confidence along with it. Maybe you've stood in moments where life moved forward, but you felt stuck, shaken, overwhelmed, emotionally drained. That feeling, that heaviness, is not a sign of weakness. It's not failure. It's simply being human. But here's the truth. You don't have to live in that place. There is a version of you, strong, steady, unbothered, who doesn't flinch when criticized, who doesn't chase after approval, who doesn't crumble when plans fall apart. That version is not a fantasy. It's real. It's you. And it's waiting, just beneath the surface, to rise. Stay with this message until the end, because what's coming isn't just advice, it's transformation. As you listen, something inside you will shift, a switch will flip, and after that moment, after that mental alignment, nothing and no one will ever affect you the same way again. Let's be honest. The world isn't always kind. People say things without thinking. Situations can be unfair, unpredictable. Expectations pile up. And before you know it, you're stretched so thin, you can barely recognize yourself. You start to absorb everything. The anger, the fear, the criticism, until it feels like you're carrying a weight you never asked for. You don't even realize how heavy it's become. But let me remind you of something simple and powerful. Nothing from the outside has power unless you give it permission. Read that again. Words don't break you unless you believe them. Judgments don't define you unless you accept them. Rejection doesn't lessen your worth unless you see yourself through someone else's eyes. The moment you reclaim that power, the moment you stop giving outside voices authority over your identity, everything begins to change. You weren't born fragile. You were born free. Just look at a child. Bold, curious, loud, full of wonder. They don't care what others think. They're not trying to be liked. They're just being. But over time, the world starts whispering, be quieter. Don't be too much. Fit in. And piece by piece, you begin shrinking yourself to feel accepted. You stop living for you and start living for approval. That's when the cracks begin. But here's the beautiful part. Cracks aren't the end. Cracks let light in. And that light is the beginning of something powerful. Every time you've been hurt, a lesson was buried in the pain. Every moment you were judged, a hidden strength was being formed. What once broke you can now build you if you let it. And the one thing that separates those who rise from those who remain stuck, it's not talent, it's not luck, it's emotional control, it's discipline, it's the power to say, "This doesn't belong to me. I don't receive it." When you get that, when you master that, you become unshakable. Not because you no longer feel, but because you stop letting your feelings run your life. Most people never reach this level because they're too distracted, always reacting, always defending, always trying to fix how others see them. But you're not here to be most people. You're here to rise, to become so grounded in your identity that no storm shakes you, to stand tall even when people leave, to remain steady even when the world throws words like stones. Because when you get to that place, you become free, free from emotional slavery, free from the noise, free from overthinking and over-explaining, free from constantly trying to prove your worth. And that kind of freedom, it feels like peace. It feels like power. It feels like coming home to your truest self. But this kind of mindset doesn't just show up overnight. It's something you train for daily. Every time you reject a thought that doesn't serve you, every time you hold your peace instead of reacting, every time you set a boundary without guilt, that's growth, that's discipline, that's a strength. And that's how the life you've always wanted begins to take shape. So stay with this until the end, because something deep inside you is already waking up. A voice that's tired of being controlled by fear, by doubt, by noise. You weren't made to be shaken. You were made to stand. And when this clicks, when the shift happens, you'll know exactly who you are. When you realize that nothing outside of you has power unless you granted permission, that's the moment your freedom begins. The moment you awaken to this truth, the world loses its grip. From that moment on, the opinions, moods, and expectations of others no longer get to dictate your peace. The world no longer holds power over you. But let's be honest, most of us get affected because we care deeply. You care what they think. You care how they see you. You care about being liked, accepted, validated, about being enough. And the more you care about things that don't truly matter, the more control you hand over. Bit by bit, your power leaks away into the hands of people who may not even know you. The more you try to please everyone, the more you forget who you are. You begin to shape yourself around opinions, reactions, expectations, until your reflection becomes unfamiliar. There's a part of the human brain hardwired for connection. It craves belonging. It seeks safety. That's not weakness. It's nature. It's instinct. But when that need turns into a constant chase for approval, you begin to compromise your identity. You lose your edge. You become a version of yourself that's shaped not by purpose, but by fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of standing out, fear of standing alone. And fear makes you small. Every time you shrink to avoid conflict, you reinforce the idea that your peace depends on someone else's comfort. Every time you silence your truth to keep others at ease, you're teaching yourself that your voice doesn't deserve to be heard. Eventually, you stop showing up as you, and the more you pretend, the more drained you feel. But here's what they don't often tell you. People will judge you either way. Whether you play it small or rise tall, there will always be opinions. So if judgment is inevitable, wouldn't you rather be judged for being real? Why not be remembered for standing firm instead of disappearing to blend in? True freedom begins when you stop needing everyone to understand you. Because the truth is, not everyone will. Not everyone will like your path. Not everyone will support your choices. And guess what? That's okay. When you begin to live for truth instead of approval, everything shifts. You stop trembling every time someone disapproves. You stop folding every time something doesn't go your way. You stop giving the outside world the blueprint to your emotions. That's the turning point. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop explaining yourself. You start honoring yourself. And in that quiet space, strength is born. Not the kind that screams to be seen, but the kind that stands tall without needing to be loud. A strength that doesn't ask for permission. A strength that knows its worth. A strength that doesn't flinch when the world pushes back. That's where real power begins to take root. The reason people still affect you is because you still believe they have the power to affect your peace. You think, if they approve of you, you're worthy. If they criticize, you're flawed. If they walk away, something must be wrong with you. But that belief, that mindset, it's the seed of emotional chaos. Here's the truth. No one holds the keys to your peace unless you hand them over. Most people live in quiet fear, trying to micromanage how others treat them. They try harder. They overcommit. They say yes when they mean no. They bend, they shrink, they perform. But control, it's an illusion. You can't control what people say. You can't manage their tone, their actions, their judgments. What you can control is what you allow to enter your mind and take root. That's where your real freedom begins. Think about it. If someone throws an insult your way, it only hits if you decide to catch it. If someone doubts your worth, it only shakes you if you believe it. It's not the noise around you that breaks you. It's what you let echo inside. And most of the time, it's not even about you. People project. They lash out from their own wounds, their fears, their unresolved pain. But when your internal clarity isn't strong, you start picking up their baggage as if it were your own. You carry weight that was never meant for you. But here's the truth. You don't need to fight for peace. You just need to stop giving attention to the things that destroy it. Not every argument is worth your time. Not every comment needs your reply. Not every misunderstanding requires your explanation. When you stop trying to control how the world sees you, the world loses its control over you. That's the strength that makes you untouchable. Not because you've hardened, but because you've become clear. You know who you are. You know what matters. And when that foundation is firm, the rest becomes background noise. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Let them leave. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be free. And the moment you stop chasing control out there, you begin to discover something far greater in here. When you stop handing the world the keys to your peace, something remarkable begins to happen. Clarity enters, and with it, real freedom. That's where peace truly takes root. Most of us aren't living our own lives. We're living versions shaped by someone else's opinions, constantly edited to win their approval, their praise, their validation. Without realizing it, we wake up each day measuring ourselves by standards we never agreed to. And every time we do, we hand over a little more of our peace. We stop asking, "What do I really need?" We stop reflecting, "What do I truly believe?" Instead, we start asking, "What will they think of me?" And that subtle shift in focus changes everything. Because the moment you stop living for them is the exact moment you unlock the most powerful version of you. You begin to hear your own voice again. You stop asking for permission. You stop justifying your desires. You no longer feel the need to explain who you are or why you want what you want. And when you take that step, even just once, it feels like breaking through the surface after being underwater. It feels like freedom. It feels like returning home to the self you were always meant to be. But here's where the shift truly deepens: detachment. Now, detachment doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means you've learned to care about what actually matters. You care about your values, not someone else's standards. You care about your growth, your boundaries, your peace. You stop carrying the burden of other people's expectations because you understand they have no power unless you give it to them. Detachment is a quiet kind of freedom. It's subtle, but it's fierce. It's knowing that someone's opinion about you doesn't define you. It's knowing that their judgments can't shape your reality unless you allow them in. Maybe in the past, you bent to fit. You tried to be agreeable, likable, acceptable to everyone. You twisted yourself in knots trying to meet everyone's needs. But when you live like that, there's a cost. You lose touch with your truth. You lose sight of your desires. You become a reflection of what others want, not who you are. And when that happens, peace vanishes. You begin living on someone else's terms. You surrender authorship of your own story. But here's the breakthrough. When you stop depending on external validation, you reclaim your voice. You become the writer of your own script. You begin to realize how strong you really are. And suddenly, nothing outside you has the power to shake what's inside. You no longer need to react to their opinions. You no longer fall apart under their judgments. You don't live for applause. You live from truth. That's where strength is born. Not loud, not forceful, but rooted and unbothered. Of course, people will still try to press your buttons. It's almost as if they're looking for a reaction. Some people carry so much chaos inside, they need someone else to feel it too. And every time you take the bait, every time you react, you hand over a small piece of your peace, their words, their moods, their negativity, their energy. If you let it control how you feel, you become a slave to someone else's emotional chaos. But here's the truth. You don't have to fall for it anymore. You're not here to be tossed around by every insult, every passive-aggressive tone, every judgmental stare. You're not here to shrink. You're here to rise. The power is not in avoiding triggers. Triggers will come. The power is in your response. And that response, that's where your freedom lives. The next time someone tries to drag you into their drama, pause, take a breath, step back, and ask yourself, is this really worth my peace? Emotional control doesn't mean suppressing how you feel. It means creating space between what happens and how you choose to respond. And that space, that pause, that's where your power lives. That's where you decide. Will I react out of fear, insecurity, or frustration? Or will I respond from a place of calm, clarity, and strength? The more you practice that space, the more powerful you become. Things that once shook you start to lose their grip. And no, this doesn't mean you stop feeling. You're human. You'll still feel anger, sadness, disappointment, but you no longer let those emotions run the show. You don't let them dictate your next move, because the moment you choose how you respond, you break the cycle. You reclaim your peace. You return to yourself. You stop letting people's chaos create storms inside your mind. Over time, you begin to build a mindset that stays grounded, even when storms rage around you. A mindset that doesn't crumble at every insult, every mood swing, every unexpected situation. Because once you reach this level of emotional awareness, something shifts deep inside. You stop living in reaction mode. You stop letting every glance, every tone, every offhand comment rattle you. You stop handing over your peace like it belongs to someone else. You become steady, unshakable, rooted. Why? Because your peace is no longer dependent on what others say or do. It no longer comes from approval, attention, or agreement. Your peace becomes yours. And once that happens, nobody can take it from you. Here's the hard truth. People can only affect you when you allow them to. Every time you react, you're essentially giving them permission to take a piece of your inner calm. But what if you stopped giving that permission? What if, instead of reacting impulsively, you paused, just long enough to remember? They only have as much power as I allow. That realization alone can change your entire life. Detachment isn't about building walls. It's not coldness or emotional disconnection. It's about clarity. It's about freedom. It's about recognizing that while you can't control other people's words, emotions, or behavior, you can control your response. You are not responsible for how others feel about your boundaries. You are not responsible for how they interpret your silence or your choices. And the moment you understand that, you stop needing to defend yourself. You stop over-explaining. You stop trying to convince people of your worth. Because your worth was never theirs to define. It was never up for debate. It lives within you, and It always has. When you let go of the need for external validation, you begin to experience emotional freedom. You no longer base your self-esteem on who approves of you or who misunderstands you. You no longer seek value in places that never had the power to give it. And that, right there, that's where your true power begins to grow. Because the moment you begin living for you, the moment your decisions flow from self-respect, not from the fear of disappointing others, the moment you act from inner alignment instead of outer pressure, you become solid. Imagine walking into any room, meeting any person, and not needing their approval to feel good about who you are. Imagine the strength of standing in your truth, unshaken, no matter who's watching. That's the power of detachment. It doesn't mean you care less. It means you finally care about the right things. The more you practice it, the stronger you become. Each time you choose not to take the bait, each time you resist the pull to argue, to defend, to over-explain, you are building a muscle. You're training your nervous system to stay calm in chaos. You're becoming emotionally resilient. You're becoming unshakable. And one day, you'll look back and realize nothing and no one can steal your peace unless you let them. And you won't let them anymore, because now you know your peace is sacred. It's your responsibility. It's yours to protect, to nurture, and to guard. When you stop letting others dictate how you feel, you begin to take your life back. And when you take your life back, you start to realize something profound. That pain you've been carrying, that shame, that weight of other people's opinions, it was never yours to begin with. The insults, the criticism, the judgment, none of it came from you. It came from them, their fear, their insecurity, their unresolved pain. And somewhere along the way, you picked it up and made it your own. But now you can lay it down, because pain is part of life. But it doesn't have to define who you are. It doesn't decide what you're capable of. It doesn't get the final word. The moment you turn your pain into power, everything begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of your circumstances. You start becoming the author of your own story. And every setback, every scar, becomes the fuel that drives your growth. You don't run from the pain. You don't hide from the struggle. You rise, stronger, wiser, more rooted than before. Because real strength isn't about avoiding pain. It's about facing it with clarity, courage, and calm. Life will always throw curveballs. There will always be hard days, losses, and doubts. But your future won't be shaped by what happens to you. It will be shaped by how you respond. So ask yourself, when life tests you again, when another storm comes, will you let the pain break you, or will you use it to build something stronger? When you learn to turn pain into power and boundaries into strength, something begins to shift inside you. You no longer just survive, you begin to rise. And with each rise, your resilience deepens. Every time you choose not to let someone's words or behavior shake you, you grow stronger. These moments, small, quiet, but deeply powerful, are where true resilience is built. They become proof that your peace doesn't depend on anything or anyone outside of you. You are no longer a victim of opinions, no longer at the mercy of moods, of misunderstandings, of manipulation. You've become something far greater, the creator of your own peace. And when peace is something you create, not something you chase, it becomes unshakable. It lives within you, firm, rooted, untouched by storms. You stop waiting for someone to approve of you before feeling worthy. You stop needing validation to feel whole. You begin to stand fully in your truth, your strength, and your stillness. And when you do that, nothing and no one can break through that foundation again. Here's something few people realize. Your emotional energy is one of the most valuable currencies you possess, and how you spend it determines the quality of your life. Every time you argue unnecessarily, every time you overanalyze what someone else thinks of you, every time you pour your energy into pleasing others, you're draining your own reserves, slowly, quietly, but powerfully. You have a choice. You can waste your energy constantly defending your peace, or you can protect it by mastering your focus and guarding your emotional space. That's where boundaries come in, not as walls, but as wisdom. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're not acts of coldness or pride. They're about knowing where you end and where they begin. They're about saying, "This is what I accept. This is what I will no longer carry." When you create those clear emotional lines, you begin protecting your energy like it's sacred, because it is. You stop letting people drain you with their drama. You stop letting noise distract you from peace. You stop explaining yourself to those who don't deserve the explanation. You don't owe the world an apology for protecting your peace. You don't need to justify your silence, your space, or your emotional boundaries. Each time you draw a line, you're saying, "I choose to be intentional with my energy. I choose calm over chaos, stillness over stimulation, peace over pleasing." And the real strength? It's when you can stand firm in your boundaries without guilt, without second-guessing, without shrinking back. When you know who you are, when you've rooted yourself in clarity, nothing can shake you unless you allow it. You stop letting someone else's bad mood ruin your good day. You stop letting other people's opinions define your self-worth. You stop letting negativity redirect your purpose, because your worth isn't negotiable. Your peace isn't up for discussion, and your truth doesn't need consensus. The world will keep trying to pull you in. People will press, will provoke, will push for a reaction. But when your inner boundaries are solid, you don't flinch. You don't step into their storm. You invite them into your calm. And when they can't meet you there, you don't follow. You stay grounded. You stay in alignment with your truth, your values, your purpose. That's what emotional strength looks like. And when you live this way, when your mindset shifts from controlling others to mastering yourself, everything changes. The goal was never to control the world. The goal is to lead yourself through the world. You begin to choose your responses carefully. You begin to direct your thoughts with intention. You begin to own your actions without apology. Because here's the simple truth. You are in full control of your inner world. And once you understand that, once you live from that place, you become unstoppable. It's not about pretending life is easy. It's not about ignoring problems or avoiding pain. It's about becoming so grounded that no matter what life throws at you, you respond, not react. Because the only thing you can ever truly control is you, not their words, not their actions, not their projections or expectations, but you can control what you allow in. You can control how you let it affect your spirit. And that control, that awareness, that's what creates emotional freedom. Every time you choose not to take the bait, every time you don't react, every time you decide that's not worth my energy, you reclaim your power. And yes, it's hard, especially if you were raised to react. Especially if you've lived your life thinking you had to defend yourself to be safe. But now, that's changing. When you stop reacting to the outside world and start setting strong internal boundaries, you no longer have to sacrifice your peace for anyone else. From there, you enter a new phase, a phase where you truly take control of your life. At first, it might feel unfamiliar not to defend yourself, not to jump in and justify your choices. You're so used to protecting your image, explaining your thoughts, or reacting to others' expectations. But with practice, it becomes easier, almost second nature. You start to realize something powerful. Your peace is your responsibility, and no one, absolutely no one, has the right to take it from you unless you hand it over. And as you keep practicing this mindset, you begin to understand something even deeper. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to convince anyone of your intentions. Their understanding is not your requirement for peace. Your worth is not up for debate. You no longer wait for someone to say, "You're enough." You already know you are. When you stand confidently in your own truth, you stop needing external validation. You stop looking around for signs of approval, because inside, you've made peace with yourself, with your past, and with your journey. And that inner peace, it becomes your anchor. No storm can move it. No voice can drown it. Once you stop trying to change the world just to feel safe and start tending to your own inner world, something profound awakens. You no longer fear noise, chaos, or judgment. You begin to move through life, steady, focused, strong, no longer shaken by small things, no longer reactive to every opinion. You become untouchable. No person, no situation, no mistake can take away your sense of peace, because your peace now comes from within, not from being liked, not from being right, not from being perfect, but from being real. And real is more than enough. The truth is, we've spent so much of our lives trying to meet expectations that we never agreed to. We wear masks just to fit molds that were never made for us. And somewhere along the way, we forget to ask the most important question: what do I really want? But when you stop bending for others, when you stop shrinking to make them comfortable, that's when you find your power. That's when your authenticity rises to the surface. To live true to yourself means walking into any room and not needing to shift who you are. It means not apologizing for your dreams, your voice, or your pace. You don't have to prove you belong. You simply know that you do. You begin to let go of the need to impress, the desire to be seen a certain way. You accept that you are human, flawed, evolving, whole. And in that self-acceptance, a deep confidence is born. No longer do you let praise inflate you or criticism deflate you. You stay centered. And it's not that you've become cold or closed off. It's that you've become grounded, rooted in your self-awareness, rooted in your truth. You've realized that people's judgments aren't reflections of you. They're mirrors of themselves. This is where freedom truly begins. Freedom from the pressure to perform. Freedom from the need to explain. Freedom from the grip of fear, comparison, or insecurity. When you start living for you, not for applause, not for permission, you stop being swayed by every opinion that floats your way. You stop reacting to their words, whether it's praise or critique. You stop feeling the need to defend your joy or justify your peace. You've learned something powerful. That validation from others might feel good for a moment, but it never lasts. It's like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. It only leaves you wanting more. Instead, you begin to nourish yourself from within. You start filling those empty spaces, not with others' approval, but with your own honesty, self-love, and purpose. And once that shift happens, once you truly embrace your full self, there is nothing anyone can say or do that can take that away from you. You walk taller. You speak clearer. You rest easier. You've stopped asking the world for permission to be yourself, because you've already granted it to yourself. That is where your strength lives. That is the moment you become exactly who you were meant to be: strong, secure, and completely untouchable. You've probably heard people say, "Just let it go." But we both know it's not that simple, is it? Letting go isn't pretending something didn't hurt. It's not smiling through the weight of what's unresolved. So how do you really let go, not just in thought, but in soul, when you are no longer swayed by other people's looks, opinions, or past? You begin to live fully. But to get there, you need to learn to let go, not for the sake of forgetting, but for the sake of freedom. Every single time you cling to something that once wounded you, you give it fresh permission to influence your life today. You breathe new life into old pain. You keep the fire burning by replaying the same argument, the same betrayal, the same thought loop, again and again. And maybe you don't even realize it. But every time you do that, you hand over your peace. Letting go isn't about pretending it didn't happen. It's not about wiping away the memory or acting like you weren't hurt. It's about finally accepting what cannot be changed: the past, the words said, the choices made. Because no matter how much you replay the scene, you can't rewrite it. But you can rewrite what happens next. You get to decide that the weight you've carried no longer belongs on your shoulders. You get to declare that your pain, while real, no longer has the power to shape who you are today or who you're becoming tomorrow. That moment, the one where you choose release over resentment, is when you reclaim your life. It's when you take your story out of the hands of what happened and place it back into your own. This doesn't mean you won't still feel pain. It doesn't erase the hurt. But it means you stop dragging that pain with you into every moment, every choice, every relationship. It means you take your power back. You stop responding to life from a place of wounding. You stop reacting based on what someone once said or did. Their actions no longer get to direct your emotional state. Your energy becomes yours again. Your peace finally becomes protected. And this is where forgiveness comes in. Not for them, but for you. Because forgiveness is not a favor you do for someone else. It's a quiet release you offer yourself. It's saying, I won't let this poison live inside me anymore. It's recognizing that resentment is a chain, and you've been holding the key all along. You're not forgetting what happened. You're freeing yourself from being defined by it. And when you do that, when you truly let go, something almost magical happens. You start to feel light, really light. Like a burden you didn't even know you were carrying has finally lifted. You stop being triggered by every offhand comment or critical look. You stop needing to defend your peace because no one's holding it hostage anymore. You begin to live in the present again, not trapped in loops of the past or tied to other people's judgments. You show up for yourself with a clarity that changes everything. Your focus sharpens. Your confidence grows. And from that grounded space, nothing can disturb you. Not because the world changes, but because you did. That's when peace becomes more than a concept. It becomes a way of being. A deep presence that follows you into every decision, every relationship, every quiet moment. But here's something most people overlook. Peace doesn't just happen. It's not passive. Peace is something you protect. And protection requires boundaries. Boundaries are not walls built to keep people out. They are bridges that teach others how to approach you. They're reminders that your time, energy, and emotional health matter, that you matter. Setting boundaries isn't only about telling others no, it's also about telling yourself yes. Yes to rest. Yes to stillness. Yes to self-respect. It's about honoring yourself enough to walk away from chaos, to decline conversations that only stir confusion, to stop giving your precious energy to things that leave you drained. And here's the truth. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing peace. You don't need to justify why you're not available to fight every battle, fix every misunderstanding, or entertain every emotional storm. Your peace is your priority now. But to truly live this way, you must first believe you're worthy of peace. You have to believe that your well-being matters more than temporary validation, more than approval, more than the fleeting comfort of pleasing everyone else. When you choose yourself, really choose, you stop chasing things that once felt essential. You stop bending to meet others' expectations. Stop living to avoid judgment. Stop apologizing for your own needs. That's when your life begins to feel like yours again. You don't need applause to feel confident. You don't need agreement to move forward. You don't need anyone's permission to live in alignment with who you really are. Once you start valuing your own peace, the world loses its grip on you. No more waiting for approval. No more seeking safety in people's opinions. No more molding yourself to fit places you were never meant to belong. That shift in mindset changes everything. And it starts with letting go. Once you begin living for yourself, free from the weight of others' expectations, you discover a powerful truth. Peace is not found in the outer world, but cultivated within. Instead of chasing approval from people and places that never truly nourish you, you begin turning inward. You start trusting your intuition. You lean into your own voice and rely on your inner judgment. That's how you begin to build unshakable confidence, brick by brick, moment by moment. When your sense of worth comes from within, external noise loses its grip on you. You no longer seek validation in temporary things. You no longer need someone else to confirm your value because you already know it. And as you protect your peace day by day, you'll start to notice a quiet transformation. Life feels lighter. You become more focused, more in tune with your deeper purpose. The chaos around you, it starts to fade into background noise. You stop getting pulled into the drama, the criticism, the gossip, the negativity. None of it sticks anymore. You become stronger, more grounded, and at peace with yourself. And when that happens, when you stand in that calm clarity, nothing and no one can shake you. Your peace becomes your shield, and with that shield, you become unstoppable. Because the moment you shift your attention inward, something profound happens. You begin to see just how much control you've always had. It's easy to fall into the illusion that life is against you, that every criticism, every failure, every confrontation is an attack. But with a shift in perspective, you begin to realize you're not at the mercy of the world. You are and have always been the one in command. That power, it was never lost. It was just buried under layers of doubt, fear, and distraction. It was never about changing the world around you. It was always about changing how you respond to it. Most people live in a constant state of reaction. They react to stress. They react to disapproval. They react to negativity. And in doing so, they give away their power, piece by piece. But when you recognize that you are the creator of your own experience, something within you ignites. You stop letting life happen to you and start shaping your life the way you want it to be. That's where real freedom lives. It's in the ability to choose your thoughts instead of being ruled by them, to direct your emotions instead of being consumed by them, to respond with intention instead of reacting out of habit. And the moment you take responsibility for your internal world, your emotions, your energy, your choices, you reclaim the very power that so many people unknowingly give away. No longer do you need to play the victim. No longer must you be thrown around by criticism, rejection, or disappointment. You begin to see that you choose how you feel. You choose how to move forward. You choose what matters. And something beautiful happens in that shift. The things that once triggered you, those harsh words, those cold stares, those dismissive gestures, they begin to lose their power. Not because they disappeared, but because you stopped feeding them your energy. You stopped granting them access to your mind and heart. You realize they only ever had as much control as you allowed. And the more you choose peace, the more you choose clarity. The more you begin to master your internal world. And when you master what's within, the outside world can no longer disturb your calm. Yes, life will still challenge you. People will still test your patience and push your boundaries. But now, you are grounded, rooted, no longer shaken by storms. You've become the calm within them. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to prove yourself. You simply stand, silent, steady, and strong, knowing that your peace is not negotiable. Because you've stepped into the truth. You are the creator of your peace. And once you fully embrace that truth, you become unshakable. You become unstoppable. And yet, as this inner strength begins to settle into your bones, there's still more to discover. As we've seen, true power begins when you no longer try to control the world, but instead, master your own mind. Now, let's take that one step further. What you need to control is your response, not the people, not the situation, not the storm, but your inner reaction to them. Once you embrace this truth, a shift happens. You stop wasting your energy on battles that aren't worth fighting. You no longer feel the need to win every argument or explain yourself to those unwilling to understand. You begin to guard your energy like something sacred. And it is. Instead of allowing drama to drain you, you conserve that power for what truly matters: your personal growth, your inner calm, and your journey forward. That mindset? It's a game changer. It's the kind of clarity that frees you from the invisible chains of the outside world. You no longer chase approval or wear yourself thin, trying to meet impossible expectations. You stop measuring your worth through the lens of others' opinions. Instead, you turn inward and you find something stronger: your truth. And you stand in that truth without apology, because you now understand. You are not defined by what others think of you. You're not defined by how they judge you or by the challenges that show up uninvited. You're defined by how you choose to respond. When you choose peace, consciously, repeatedly, you are also choosing to write your own story. And the more you practice this, the more magnetic your energy becomes. You'll begin to attract people who respect your boundaries. You'll draw in experiences that nourish your spirit. You'll find yourself surrounded by a different kind of energy, one that mirrors your inner clarity. And know It's not about controlling the outer world. It's about transforming into the kind of person who naturally flows with what aligns. You don't need to force anything. You just need to stay rooted in who you are, and when you do, you'll notice nothing and nobody can truly affect you anymore. Your peace becomes a fortress. Your strength becomes unshakable. And from that foundation, you begin creating a life built not on fear or approval, but on freedom, joy, and deep fulfillment. You've taken back your power, and with that power, you've become unstoppable. As you grow more comfortable living in your truth, a deeper realization will begin to emerge. Your power lies in the choices you make every single day. Each decision, no matter how small, what you say yes to, what you say no to, who you give your time to, what you focus on, has the ability to redirect the course of your life. It's the people you allow in your orbit. It's the thoughts you choose to dwell on. It's the energy you give to what matters and what no longer does. And when you learn to make choices that are aligned with your peace, you'll feel it almost instantly. Your sense of well-being rises. Your mind clears. Your life begins to flow. Now, choosing peace doesn't mean you avoid every conflict or live in a bubble of false positivity. Not at all. It means that you remain grounded, rooted in your own values, even when the world feels like it's spinning off course. It means that you stay centered when others lose themselves. You remain aligned with your truth, no matter the noise. And the beauty of this path is that it becomes self-reinforcing. The more you prioritize peace, the more your decisions naturally reflect it. You'll start choosing relationships that uplift you, not ones that wear you down. You'll spend time doing things that nourish your soul, not things that just fill space. And most importantly, you'll begin to let go, gently, courageously, of what no longer supports your growth. This is the quiet revolution within, and the most powerful part, it's entirely within your control. So often, we think we're at the mercy of life, but we're not. What truly shapes your life isn't what happens to you. It's how you respond. You don't need control over every person or every outcome to feel at peace. You just need to master your mindset and your reactions. That mastery creates a sense of freedom that's hard to put into words. When you choose peace over chaos day after day, your outer world begins to reflect your inner world. The right people start to show up. New opportunities begin to unfold effortlessly. Even the challenges that used to rattle you now seem manageable. You face them with steady confidence, knowing that nothing has the power to break you anymore. You've come too far. You've grown too strong. And the truth is clearer than ever. Nothing and nobody can affect you again. You've learned how to protect your peace, to guard it like sacred ground. You no longer hand it over to anyone who demands a reaction. You've learned to stand firmly in your own truth, grounded and unwavering. And with that clarity, you've begun to shape a life that reflects your inner strength, not the world's expectations, but your deepest values. Now, you're no longer tossed by the chaos around you. You've become steady, unshakable. What once stirred your anxiety or shook your confidence now passes through you like a breeze. You feel it, but it doesn't move you. You've reached a state few people ever truly attain. Complete freedom. The freedom to say no without guilt. The freedom to choose your own path without needing validation. The freedom to be exactly who you are and feel whole doing so. And the beauty of it all? You no longer feel the need to explain yourself. You're not chasing approval. You're not trying to prove your worth. Because deep down, you've come to understand something essential. You are already enough. No outside voice can define your worth. No challenge can overpower your calm. You've built your foundation from within. And now, no one can shake it. No one can steal your peace unless you allow it. And you've stopped giving them permission long ago. You've become unstoppable. Not because you've fought harder, but because you've let go of everything that no longer serves you. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And yet, there's still one more step on this journey. Because now that you've discovered this unshakable peace, how do you protect it every single day?